morning, everybody.
Good morning, guys. What's up? How's it going?
It's good to be back here with
Yeah.
my brother physically. Although the physical meetings will pause again after today because
Yeah, I'm heading back to Calcutta in like 2-3 hours.
a brief trip to Delhi was made
Mm-hmm.
for Holi. We had a great, colorful, beautiful Holi with the family here, and I hope you all had the same. And it's good to be recording again. Good to bring back some of our focus on important, relevant issues of the country, of the policy making circles. So, recently, we've been keeping up with the news, the publications, etc. And it would have been hard to miss the Agni 5 missile launch that has happened under the mission Divya Sastra of the Government of India. How it has been equipped with multiple re-entry vehicle technology. I can't recall the full acronym, but it is a significant boost to India's security capabilities. And I thought, based on that, it's a good idea to reassess and recalibrate the discussion with respect to India's security challenges. What all has been going on in the neighborhood, what all has been going on in West Asia, what all has been going on in parts of Europe, and how we need to establish some strength in our defense affairs to establish a deterrent. Jay, let's get your thoughts.
Absolutely. I would want to understand the technicalities behind this new government program. What type of missiles are we talking about? Are these SAMs, which are surface to air missiles?
So, I will only speak how much I understand
Hmm.
right now. From my understanding, this is an MIRV technology where the missile which is fired from it's first off it's an intercontinental ballistic missile.
Hmm.
So the range is 5000
Okay.
5000 kilometers, forgive me.
Yeah.
And so as a result it can go and strike fairly distant targets, and multiple vehicle launch, re-entry, all of those terms basically mean that when the missile is launched out of the atmosphere, it first re-enters the atmosphere and its lid sort of opens up.
Hmm.
When the missile's lid opens up, there are warheads within the missile which can go and strike different targets.
Okay. Understood.
So you can identify target A, B, C, and D in a certain country, and they naturally have to be proximate. But once the MIRV equipped Agni 5 missile is fired, the missile's top latch can sort of open up, and its payloads can be delivered onto different targets.
Understood. So, does it have nuclear capability?
Yes,
It has
that
nuclear
is
capability.
that is why the government of India took time to acknowledge this.
Okay.
It is said that since 2012, India might have had this capability, or the DRDO, the Ministry of Defense, may have been working on it.
So, has this project been laid down with with the collaboration of some other international power at 4A? Because
No.
mostly our nuclear programs and missile programs were very Russian dominated.
Yeah, I
Given
mean that
most of our
was
ICBMs were influenced or had some levels of Russian know-how
yeah,
involved in.
that was mainly with the BrahMos missile.
Yeah.
But again, with the BrahMos missile, you couldn't do the you couldn't do the multiple target attacking part
Okay.
of it.
Okay.
So this MIRV capability started developing mainly around the 1960s.
Hmm.
It was said that China has possessed this technology for a while. The US started developing it strongly around the time of the Cold War. India has been anxious about acknowledging it publicly because it somewhat attracts a lot of attention and
Yeah.
some oversight. There have been statements that have also said that India should now start developing capabilities to launch these MIRV enabled nuclear warheads from submarines. So when you start developing capabilities to fire intercontinental ballistic missiles from submarines, the parts of the world which are keen observers of security related issues, they will start observing and start thinking what exactly is India trying to do over here.
But does India have expansionist goals or not, or
Precisely.
whether it wants to dominate the Indian Ocean before China reaches, or will it just be like a very big obstacle towards Chinese aggression in other parts of Southeast
Precisely.
Asia?
Now, the underlying theme is one of the things that we haven't acknowledged publicly, but largely the theme behind acknowledging this mission publicly is that we are trying to set up a strong deterrent against China.
Hmm.
And China has many strong military capabilities, and having a deterrent like this is a strong step towards establishing a sort of regional autonomy.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Specifically when the goals of the other party are a bit expansionist in nature and also have taken aggressive overtones quite a few times.
Absolutely. I mean, speaking of which, we keep hearing of reports of settlements and villages in Indian sovereign territory. There are military installations which have been observed in parts of the Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh. There are Chinese settlements within the Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh, as has been observed many times. India's territorial sovereignty has been violated many times in Ladakh, and we live in times when India's border disputes and geopolitical tensions have been bothering us since 2020.
Galwan incident, after the Galwan incident.
Precisely. The Galwan incident happened. Uh, high number of Indian military personnel were martyred, and the Chinese side took heavy casualties as well.
Veergati, they prapt Veergati.
Yeah, can you explain us the technical difference in the usage of the term? I actually think, I mean, I'm glad that you corrected
Yes.
me. I think many army officers also don't use the term martyred. Yeah.
Martyred is a term which is essentially associated with ecclesiastical Christian theology, and it was later incorporated in a secular way by the Indian forces after independence. So that's why it has stopped being martyred, and like they prefer using terms like Veergati.
Right. That is fair.
And
Uh,
martyr actually comes from a Greek word which means to be wise or something. We'll put that up
right.
in the comments or the description.
That's fair.
Hmm.
I also think that it's wise to develop a strong deterrence force in India's defense arsenal, because for the last 3 4 years we have been observing that somewhat urban conventional warfare is making a comeback. Earlier, we used to say that the era of wars are over. In the 1940s, there used to be wars. There were some proxy wars in the Cold War, but nobody was anticipating World War One style trench warfare in today's century. So, and this takes me back to a podcast of Smita Prakash with the former Chief of Army Staff, General Naravane, where he said that whatever people might say, we can now conclude that wars will happen. What
Yeah,
do you
yeah, yeah.
think, Jay?
Yeah, wars will happen, and the invasion of Ukraine by Russia is a very good example, and the current conflict between Hamas and Israel and the spillover conflicts is a very good example. The fact that ISIS has suddenly become resurgent is a very good example. Afghanistan with Taliban's takeover and in essentiality being run by a bunch of warlords is also a very good example of how unstable the global geopolitical order is right now. Given the instability and given the expanse, the geographic expanse, and multitudes of geographical aspects attached to it. So it's not just urban combat that we're going to see, we're going to see a lot of marine coastal combat. We'll see a lot of
Yeah,
trench warfare, a lot of forest warfare, a lot of forest warfare that is actually happening in Myanmar right now,
yeah.
and that the
Which has spilled over
manifestations
into
exactly,
India.
and which has spilled over into India in the form of the violence that's happening in Manipur.
Yeah. And I think, speaking of maritime warfare, you
Hmm.
spoke of maritime warfare. Over the last few months, many commercial vessels have been hijacked and raided by Houthi rebels,
Houthi rebels, yes.
and many of them have strongly disrupted global trade, which has inflated prices of many essential commodities. And to develop naval capabilities, military capabilities, and a strong deterrence force against such actors, whether they be state backed or non state actors, that is irrelevant. It's a wise idea. I think
Yes.
these are very strong steps that were required. In addition to all these challenges, you have a regime in Afghanistan which is
Very unstable.
unstable.
Mm.
Till a few years ago, we used to classify that organization as a terrorist
Terrorist
organization.
organization.
You have leaders from that organization now publicly saying that we don't really believe in the artificial Durand line.
Yeah.
So they essentially don't believe in the Af-Pak border,
Yeah.
and as a result, they might actually make a big spillover into our western neighbor,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
that is a nuclear armed nation.
Mm.
So we literally live next to a country. We share a land border with a country which can be taken over by a formerly terrorist organization. I don't know how what we call them now, or I think officially we would still call them a terrorist organization.
Absolutely.
And then what do we do? What do we do if there is a sudden ideological shift
Mhm.
in their leaders? So
Approach towards
yeah,
how to deal with it. Yeah.
yeah.
Nah, absolutely. That makes total sense. Yeah.
Uh,
For I mean, if you have that kind of capability, which can be, which can be explored in order to cause a deterring effect towards our neighbors, then why not? I mean, for that we would probably be done with a BrahMos missile,
yeah,
which has like a shorter range and equally effective.
yeah.
And the thing is that with Taliban, that style of warfare is good enough for Hindu Kush, but are they capable enough to like have a conventional war with like an organized army? So we should not cancel out the Pakistani establishment so easily, because they have dealt with the problem of TTP in the past, and they have ensured that they are like they are pushed back to the Durand line.
Yeah, that's fair. We should not underestimate.
Yeah, we should
As
not
easy
underestimate.
as it is to do, I'm sure there are intelligence and army officials in Pakistan who can fight or wish to fight the TTP or hold them. But can you really trust the state apparatus of Pakistan? Is my real
You
question.
can, because the thing is that the ruling elite of Pakistan, which is Punjabi dominated, it would not want an Islamic hegemony coming over and taking over everything, which would inadvertently mean that all the possessions that they have in Pakistan, all the land grants that they have, they'll all go away. And as Sayyid Muzammil in one of his podcasts said very jokingly, that everything was fine till they hadn't entered outside of the northwestern frontier provinces of Pakistan. Once they moved outside the northwestern frontier provinces and came as close to Abbottabad, near Islamabad, that's when the military establishment felt extremely insecure that their domination, specifically with respect to military capabilities in Pakistan and in general, would go away.
So this is a
Mm.
kind of situation where you have the ISI kind of supporting the Taliban as long as it is countering Western
Western
forces
forces,
or conducting attacks in other parts of the world.
exactly.
But you have organs of the Pak military confronting the Taliban in its northwestern
Yes.
frontier provinces. That's to me that makes. I mean, I've known this as a overview of that country, but what logistical sense does it make? What is the stake that Pakistan holds in funding Taliban on one hand and resisting their entry into the Pak
So,
hinterland? It's
funding Taliban at one hand, what it meant was that it was getting a lot of foreign aid due to its collaboration in the war against terror, which started in 2004.
Mhm.
From that foreign aid came in a lot of foreign capital, and in essentiality, by causing these wars and conflicts, Pakistan was running the entire country. So, without conflict, there wasn't foreign funding. Without foreign funding, the government coffers were not being filled. And once the government coffers were not being filled, the army was not being fed proportionally.
And now Pakistan has made an incredibly sound economic principle of begging the
Exactly.
IMF.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that those funds are also not being channelized
No,
wisely.
absolutely not.
Their recently held elections were also, in most
They were rigged.
likelihood, they
They
were
were rigged.
totally
They were
rigged.
rigged in favor of
The
PMLN,
Sharifs.
the Nawaz League of the Pakistani Muslim League, and that's because Imran Khan became too big for his boots,
Right.
according to the army.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that anybody who challenges the long-standing authority of the Pakistan army ends up in prison, or he ends up hanged, or he ends up, exiled.
Yeah.
There are only three alternatives for anybody who challenges the political
Yes.
supremacy of the Pakistani army.
Yes.
I think many officials in the Indian army theoreticize that the Pak army is a losing army on most fronts because they are an army of businessmen. They are an army of really, really
Shrewd
debauch,
Punjabis.
yeah, really debauch, shrewd men
Punjabis.
who love real estate.
Yeah.
They're like real estate businessmen
Yeah.
in uniforms.
With weapons and
Yeah, and
nuclear
they
arsenal.
have a taste for single malt,
Yeah.
which they have a taste for all
Yeah.
kinds of fine wine
Vices.
and meats and everything. And most of their country cannot know that because they also have to please the clergy.
Yeah, yeah.
But find them no different from a real estate guy in Chhatarpur in
Yeah.
Delhi,
It's the same thing, bro.
except that he at least admits that he's a
Exactly.
pure businessman.
Yeah. Without weapons.
Yeah. So
Mm.
that's precisely why Pakistan army is not very effective when it comes to combat, when it comes to standing up to other
But
countries.
their combing operations against the TTP were phenomenal. They did a
Yeah.
very good job. Their
I,
counter-insurgency operations in the frontier provinces, specifically in Waziristan, got the desired result. I mean, not to mention that they were bombing all the innocent villagers with the help of American drones. That also happened.
yeah, it's like you wipe off half of a village
Yeah,
if you find seven, eight, nine insurgents in that
yeah,
area.
yeah,
So,
victory. Imagine like the gall that the Pakistanis have by saying that India is anti-Muslim. I mean, the amount of Muslims that Pakistan has killed in its so-called counter-insurgency operations. I'm sorry, like it has to be said.
having said that, uh, I think that it would be unwise to underestimate the ISI.
Yes, obviously.
They have planned spectacular, and I don't mean spectacular in a good way, spectacular in a like you have to understand their view kind of way, that they've essentially made the West and all the NATO countries look the other way while they continue to support a lot of insurgent groups within Afghanistan.
And India.
And in India, they were
Mm.
directly
Mm.
supporting terrorist organizations, and they managed to do this with grants they received from Western countries.
Mm.
So they are definitely sly.
Mm-hmm.
They can definitely make you look the other way and stab you in the back. And that, I think, is their real competence. Their real competence lies in deception. And for that reason, despite me taking digs at the Pakistani military for being businessmen and all that, their intelligence agencies do achieve their
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
objectives.
yeah. It does. It does. It.
Now let's shift
Mm.
the discussion to the nuclear capabilities of various countries and an arms race of sorts that the world was in the 70s. The Soviet Union kind of broke apart. Do you think that the arm race totally ended? Because I'd say a significant portion of the world is still at war.
It
And
did not end. The arms race did not end because what happened was that it was just stalled, and that too on the side of the erstwhile Soviet nations. And in the past 33 years, what has happened is that uh, it has put Russia in a position of dominance again in the region. So once it has come back into that dominant sphere, it has again reinstated the whole arms race, just because after the invasion to Ukraine was launched and there were a lot of threats that were made to the Russians by the NATO members. The first thing that Vladimir Putin did was to put the people who manage the nuclear arsenal in Russia on standby so that they are combat ready. So
Right.
this incited, I would say, the second phase and the more disturbing phase of the arms race, which corroborates the first proposition that the arms race actually never really ended. It was just stalled. And as you said, the world has constantly been at war. For countries like India and Pakistan, I'm sure they have also accelerated their arms production,
Yeah, I
because
was.
we haven't even revealed the exact number of nuclear warheads that we have. We
Yeah.
Our number is somewhere which is somewhere below 150, which I'm not willing to buy.
Yeah, that's fair. I appreciate India's development of really sophisticated nuclear weapons, and I think that it is still wise that the government of India retains its no first use policy. I was watching a video of the print by Shekhar Gupta the other day on the Agni 5 issue as well, and he said something that stuck with me, that the nuclear weapon is always the weapon of the losing side.
Hmm.
So modern warfare is coming back, trench warfare is coming back. We've seen it in Ukraine.
Hmm.
We are seeing close quarter urban combat in West Asia, in Israel and
Hmm.
Palestine, Israel and Hamas
Hmm.
as the belligerents, forgive
Hmm.
me. And now we may see more warfare in other parts of the world, South Sudan, Myanmar, etc., etc. The possibility of tension is significant. There is
Yes.
a great amount of statistical significance to another ground war breaking out somewhere in the world in the next few years, if you were to sit down and calculate. And my hope is that we learn a kind of containment conflict strategy. Like, a limited conflict of sorts in areas is understandable. I understand that when Kargil happened, there was no other option for Indians to kind of uh, charge up those mountains and do an aerial campaign and push the Pakistanis back out of that area. There was a possibility that something like that might have to be done in Ladakh at a time. The nuclear capabilities always bring me back to a disproportionate apocalyptic response to a security provocation. That is why I was sort of ag- that is a weak moment from Russia's strategic view in in my understanding of national security or international security apparatus, that nuclear weapons, you should have this capability to keep them, deliver them, to disproportionately react if you are attacked, but you should never be the first provocateur. The no first use policy in that note is essential. We must always retain it, that India is always the side that will first try a limited conflict. We will never be the first to initiate nuclear war.
Makes sense, but I have a different take to it. Why not just incapacitate the side which always threatens nuclear war through technological malfunctions? Given that we are reaching such swift developments in the sphere of we're seeing such swift developments in the sphere of artificial intelligence. I think the way artificial intelligence would be used in warfare uh, is something that we need to focus on, where you know in order to completely avoid a situation where one side could cause an eventual nuclear holocaust, the capabilities of that side is totally disarmed with respect to, say, software failures, which can be worked on through different artificial
So
intelligence.
you are implying that we can activate
So
cyber security challenges
yes,
to preempt nuclear
yes, that's what. implying.
incidents. Or
That's what I'm implying. And it can be done through artificial intelligence.
I think that there is a big, first off, neither of us truly understand artificial intelligence, and by neither of us, neither does the whole world.
Even the
The
guardians of
governments,
artificial
yeah.
intelligence don't understand it.
So most of the world is still trying to understand how AI regulation is to be implemented. We don't exactly know how to deal with quick, rapid, almost instant developments of AI technology. The rate of keeping up, the rate of the regulatory framework to catch up, and the rate of development of AI technologies, there is a huge discrepancy between the two. So the challenge lies in interlinking your weaponry and nuclear arsenal to such a technology. What you're implying, if you were to use AI related tools to preempt nuclear war, that means that there is some amount of technological interlinking that has happened between AI tools and autonomous weapon systems. That carries a huge challenge, you know.
Absolutely, but these autonomous systems would be running on some computers, right? There is no way that these nuclear warheads are just just like analog based. There has to be some computer interface that is connecting it
I mean,
to
you're right.
normal technology.
You're right, and I think we're almost there.
Yeah.
There's got to be one non-state actor or a state actor who's sitting out there and thinking that I could just make use these AI tools, take over some facility, and establish control over some autonomous weapon systems. I think the new Mission Impossible movie,
Oh,
which is, I think right now we're
wow.
still in between the two ones.
Yeah.
There's a sequel coming up that has a similar
Okay.
that the plot is along similar
Just
lines.
ensure that the silos, the silos don't open, man.
Yeah.
There'll be no
So
nuclear strikes.
yeah, so yeah, so the new Mission Impossible movie has this as its plot, that the weapon system, which in the movie is called the Entity, it develops a mind of its own,
Yeah.
and it starts targeting uh, the Ethan Hunt, this main character, for some
Yeah.
reason. But I mean, that I guess they'll reveal in the new movie. This is not a paid partnership, but if the studio is willing to give me money to promote it, I will accept it. So hit me up. But
Thanks.
uh,
Paramount पे है ना?
I'm
It's on
I'm
Paramount.
not sure. But so, having said that, I would be very anxious about any kind of significant interlinkages of modern computing systems with really destructive nuclear capabilities. And I think most of the world would, at this juncture, agree with me.
But given that the track record of Indian bureaucracy has bureaucracy and different agencies hasn't been that very efficient. Imagine if someone just misplaces the key to the nuclear missile. Like, then what are you gonna do? I mean, at least in new nuclear systems, you have some clarity that if it's run through computers, right, there would be like a know-how. But like, say, imagine for that,
Yeah, no,
old
I don't
mechanical thing. There is
see.
only
There
one
is
key.
there is going to be a there is going to be a lot of computing behind it.
Exactly.
It does not have to be artificial intelligence.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of
Even
course.
even
I was
right
joking. It
now,
was a joke.
even right now, we are doing a lot of computing for the development of weapon systems and their delivery anyway. They are largely manned, operated through computers. There's a lot of
Satellites.
communication devices used, but it's not artificial intelligence run. There is probably very basic amounts of AI that goes into it. You are not giving the control of quote unquote autonomous weapon systems to them. So that carries its dangers. They are very real dangers, honestly. There would It's any other AI danger which manifests itself, and you look back in hindsight. Oh, we knew this could be a problem, and it became one. Like there are deep fakes being generated of famous actresses. Even the Italian prime minister, the deep fakes which were very obscene, and it has their images on it, and it looks fairly real, and people can't keep up the tech or the regulatory framework to prevent these things.
Well, it's freaky because like all these applications, social media applications have also started developing their filters where they can immediately turn you into an old man. And I really thought that one of these guys on the internet was actually an
Yeah.
old guy, but turns
Yeah.
out that it was just a filter. So that's
Yeah.
how convincing these filters have become. And now
Somebody
with AI involved in it, it's just going to make things so much more difficult.
somebody had made an Instagram reel where he put that old man filter on his face, and he was riding around with a pretty young girl, and he wrote the caption pension aa gayi.
Yeah.
But it was a guy who was probably turned
Yeah, I'm
out to
talking
be
about
my
that guy,
age. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Dharamveer, like
yeah,
his name, something
whatever
like
his
that.
name. But again, coming back to the point that generative AI and other AI tools have developed at a rate which has been significantly faster than the rate at which the regulatory framework can keep up, and therefore there lies a very real danger in interlinking weapon systems to artificial intelligence, because the cost of failure of regulation in weapon systems is much higher. You might actually lose lives, or much worse, you might lose hundreds of thousands of people because of one technical glitch over there. I think if you do a cost benefit analysis, it's not even a question. So I would my recommendation, if somebody asked me, would be that you be very afraid of interlinking weapon systems and AI.
But my whole proposition wasn't interlinking weapon systems with AI. My idea was to use AI as as a tool in order to cause some type of disruptions in technologies that are being used by the enemy for handling their nuclear capabilities. You get what I'm saying? Like, using AI, using problems that AI can solve, and then implementing them, and then going against your enemy.
Right. Well, that is fair, and I think that it's only a matter of time. What you're saying is more likely to happen, actually.
Exactly.
The inclusion of these tools in warfare will come in. And I mean, we don't work in intelligence services or the military. It might already have, to be fair.
Okay.
So your guess is as good as mine, sort of a
Fair enough.
thing. But you should always kind of tightrope these complex policy challenges.
Do you want to talk about how India is not a signatory to certain nuclear containment, nuclear
The
containment,
non-proliferation
yeah,
treaties and
treaties,
the
nuclear containment treaties?
yes,
So,
and the
what do you think? What is the reason behind it?
I think that they were honestly very, very biased towards the Western world.
Mm-hmm.
There, the implication was okay, these certain countries can have nuclear weapons or weapons that can cause significant destruction,
Yeah.
atomic bombs, etc. And after this, the development has to be stalled.
Okay.
And after this,
Mm.
the development has to be
Yeah.
stalled. So to earn that kind of confidence, you should invite regulators and independent oversight authorities or something of that sort to first overlook your decommissioning of nuclear weapons. So what kind of a Western led request is that we won't phase out our nuclear weapons, but you don't develop
Yeah,
any.
yeah, you don't. It's like how the whole burden of ensuring that there is some changes towards combating climate change is on the on the eastern world, whereas the west does not take any accountability for its actions on that front.
Yeah, even the test ban treaties,
Yeah.
like the partial nuclear test ban
Hmm.
treaties, they were so like biased to hold development of nuclear weapons in countries which are not the major powers in the world, like post 1945 or whatever. And I think that that carries an element of maintaining your power and superiority in the global world order. I mean, nobody wants to lose the superpower title.
Of course.
And I'm glad that honestly, whenever the sense came in the 70s, we did our first nuclear test in Pokhran. In 1998, we achieved a major success over there. I am very glad that the leadership of our time thought it was necessary for development of these technologies, because if we hadn't, we would be surrounded by China on one side, Pakistan on the other, both nuclear armed countries,
And let's
and
not forget that the Khalida Zia government in Bangladesh was quite openly campaigning against India. In fact, it is quite evident from certain activities of ISI that once the Khalida Zia government was established in Bangladesh, they were given free hand in order to operate specifically in the northeastern states as well.
right.
So it is only and only Sheikh Hasina's government which has a pro-India stance.
Yeah.
Once that is gone, then you have
Then you have another
you
challenging
have another
neighbor.
challenge with respect to Bangladesh, and I think our relationship with Bangladesh are only going to get a
Yeah.
bit more soured given
S-
the
s-
policies of
So
the
we are
establishment.
actually in between. Myanmar has its own challenges.
Exactly.
Bangladesh has its own challenges. Pakistan is Pakistan,
Yeah.
and our greatest adversary in the region is now China.
Mm.
So we are surrounded in a turbulent neighborhood, and that makes it a wise decision to have a nuclear arsenal that is a deterrent.
That's
It's
true.
largely a deterrent and it must continue to be one.
Yeah.
These NTBTs, I think the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, the Non Proliferation Treaties, they've all been selective. I understand the view of anti nuclear organizations. I honestly would love an idealistic world where nuclear weapons were not a reality.
Mm.
But now that they are, and you have to protect yourself, what do you do then?
Exactly.
You have now no country in the world who will be willing to phase out or decommission, in the view of independent inspectors, their own nuclear weapons.
Mm.
So why should any other country who face security threats, who faces internal external security threats, be prevented from doing so? That is my understanding. I don't encourage usage of nuclear weapons, but capability to have them for a country like India is essential.
That makes sense.
And I think that is like our
That is the scope of our conversation.
the scope and how things lie in with respect to national security and weapons capabilities
Yes.
and certain amount of
Next,
AI.
I think in the next episode dealing with such issues, we can talk about assault rifles and how their
Yeah.
usage and like their manufacturing has changed in our
Yeah.
country. So that is also
Next up,
associated
we
with
could also
security.
talk about the modernization and simultaneous attempts of indigenization in India's defense industry,
Yes, that's a good topic
improvement of assault
that
rifles.
we can do from Calcutta.
Yeah,
Good idea.
when you will be back in Calcutta and we will go back to our video conferencing mode,
Yeah,
we can explore those topics of discussion.
understood.
And
So like and subscribe, press the bell icon.
thank you for
Thank
joining
you for
us.
joining us. Our family is only growing. I think we've reached 68. So I
And
think it's
we'll
only going to grow from now on. Bye. See you.
bye. Thank you.